welcome to Bleach Revisited. I am Carker Gold, your host of this series in which we will be reading every single chapter of the Bleach manga, providing critical analysis of the art and narrative as well as personal response to each of these chapters. We'll also be discussing how the individual chapter connects to the rest of the series as a whole. As usual, we begin these videos with a reading of the chapter that we are currently discussing for the episode. This is Chapter 118, Supernal Tag. Zabimaru. So, you're still asleep. Look at your sorry self. Is that all you have to say after all this time? Good to see you too. Can you say anything nice? I'm fully recovered. I'm ready to fight. Now it's your turn. Stop lying there and get better already. And let me fight Sengetsu. Next time, I'll win. You fool! Were you taking a nap? He's not my enemy anymore. I see. Then who is your enemy? Who will you fight now? Bleach, Chapter 118, Supernal Tag. This is Renji Abarai. Yurichi? Who is she? I don't know her. Ah, I've heard that name before, I believe. She was the Supreme Commander of the Secret Remote Squad and the General Corps Leader of the 1st Division Punishment Force, Yurichi Shihoen. It's been a long time. Over a century, I believe. I thought you were dead. Miss Yurichi, you came to help me, thanks, but please, stay out of this. I have to beat him. Beat? You? Beat him? Don't be a fool. Huh? Ugh. What? Why? Miss Yuri... So it's medicine. Was it Gaten or Hoten? Gaten is piercing point. Hoten is collapsing point. You shove some powerful anesthetic directly into his organs. Do you intend to heal him, Yurichi? Yukitake. Is that what you wish? I won't allow it. You cannot escape from here, milady. Do you consider yourself my equal, Byakuya? Have you even once beaten me in a game of Chase the Devil? Onigoko in Japanese are tag. Shall we have a go? Did you think you could escape me with a shunpo like that? Do you think you could stop me with a shunpo like that? 3 days. I'll make him stronger than you in 3 days. I know it's self-serving, but I'm declaring a truce until then. Chase me if you wish. Flashmaster Yorichi will not be captured by the likes of you. August 1st. Sunny. Today is the annual fireworks festival. I ran into the Kurosaki family in the afternoon. They were already going crazy and running around screaming about something. My first thought was, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Who knows what they'd do to me in their condition? They might put me in a loincloth and force me to eat octopus dumplings through my nose, just because it's a festival, etc. Oh well, I guess I'll skip the fireworks and go home. And that is it for chapter 118, Supernal Tag. Let me get back to the beginning of the chapter and we can discuss the art and narrative as we are to do typically. So, first of all, the title, Supernal, that is not supernatural, it is in fact its own word, Supernal, uh, which refers to like the cosmos or the heavens. Really, it's equal parts like heavens as sky, but also heavens as like a celestial kind of like a higher plane. Um, Interesting tattoos in the sky, kind of referencing this. The tumbling current of the heavens of the Shiva is also sort of like arranging the heavens as both sky as well as this kind of celestial place, right? And so supernal tag, this kind of heavenly tag, or this tag of the sky, that kind of very clearly is meant to be a bit of a reference to the game of tag that Yorichi and Byakuya are playing. Both like the actual game, but also the back and forth that they're having in this chapter. But you can also, if you do want to read a little bit into it, I don't know if this fun is as intended in the Japanese, but hey, I'm all about reading context that, well, reading that context, but reading into a fiction and coming up with your own kind of conclusions. The reason why, and I'll take an aside here to say, sometimes on this channel, what you might find is what you could describe as headcanon. You might find me suggesting kind of wild things about Bleach or what's going on. I try to keep everything grounded in the evidence that we're given in the story. However, if I ever do suggest something that you don't agree with, that doesn't sit well with you, feel free to talk about it in the comments. But part of what I like about fiction is that it invites us to co-author the world. And so while, you can go on days and days about what the author intended, the whole point is that the fiction is now yours to digest and enjoy in your own way. And so if you happen to read a different reading out of the word supernal tag, and that's valid for you, and that helps you enjoy the story more power to you. Like, I don't think there's a right or wrong way. Well, I don't think like there's a decisive right way to read anything. There are certainly wrong ways. Like you could certainly come to conclusions that don't have any basis in any sort of context. And there are certainly people that kind of come to these conclusions and then use it to deride the story that they don't understand. And I would argue that that is, in fact, the wrong way to read something and engage with it. But yeah, I think that if you find something that makes you more excited about a piece of fiction, even if it's not something the author intended, that's fine. That's fiction doing the thing it does. That's it allowing you to kind of co-author this story. So yeah. Anyway, Supernal Tag, the other reading that I kind of take from that, is that Renji himself, there's a part of his soul that is tagged by the heavens, right? But we open on this tattoo, which can be, argued as a tag, a tattoo that we find that he shares with his spirit of the Zabimaru. And yeah, so I like the idea that like the opening of this is Supernal Tag is as much about Renji and perhaps his relationship to who he's going to fight and the sort of changing territory there. There's a different it now even, so you can read it as tag as in like a way in which someone is tagged literally like like a marking upon them, as much as you can read it as like the game of tag of people tagging in and out. Yeah, so I think that's neat. Anyway, so we do open on Renji here. Renji, as he is detained, as he is, remember he was taken care of, but also detained. Byakuya was not very happy with him and would completely get rid of him, if not for others vouching for him. I don't even, it's been, I like how it hasn't even been that many chapters, so I don't exactly remember how it went down, but nevertheless, he was given treatment by the fourth. And we're finally, coming back to him. And here, we do have him speaking to a manifestation of Zabimaru. And it's interesting. I like Zabimaru's design a lot. I like that we get this kind of beast form for Zabimaru, whereas Zangetsu is clearly a dude. So I like that Zabimaru also has like a tattoo, and that Renji's tattoos kind of approximate that. Cute note: Renji's tattoos are very angular, whereas Zabimaru's are very smooth. And I don't know if there's any other sort of connection to draw from that other than the one that I immediately go to. The context I have is the game Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, in which the real world, the world of the living, everything was kind of smoother and rounded. Your health bar was a spiral. But whenever you went into the world of the dead, the world of spirits, everything became jagged, and your health bar became an angular sort of spiral. It was kind of cool. It would also shift the terrain all around. Everything would get warped, and so you could solve some puzzles that way. But I do think it's neat here as this distinction between this spiritual entity. I mean, technically Renji's a spiritual entity too, but this distinction between like this entity that only exists truly in manifestation in spirit, and Renji himself. And I wonder if Renji got the tattoos after the fact, or like what, right? Because like this is a reflection of Renji, of his spirit, right? As far as we understand it, is this thing born of him. It is his sword spirit, right? So there's a fair amount of like uniqueness, and how much it's a reflection of Renji's soul versus whatever other things going on in the Bleach universe. It's not entirely spelled out. I always kind of personally read the Zanpakuto spirit as being like an entire like entity that is, while separate from you, is a reflection or manifestation of your own Reiatsu, and so is like holding up a kind of mirror almost to yourself, though it can be its own entity separate of that. It's yeah, which is why I've got there's a lot of reason for that headcanon. I'm not going to get into it right now. Anyway, talking about Zabimaru, I think it's really cool. Zabimaru is this really powerful kind of baboon-looking monkey, big monkey, but it's got a snake tail, so it's chimeric in a way, which is cool. Certainly, it reflects the two states that Zabimaru seems to have. Right, whenever it's all in one blade, it is this chopping, bestial, fanged implement. But it is capable of unwinding and being snake-like, and striking from a distance. So yeah, I like that those aspects are there. I will also say that maybe this does represent almost, if I want to read a lot into it, that there is a division within Renji's soul and always has been. That he's bestial in nature, perhaps. There's sort of an animal side to him, but moreover that Renji is of two minds. That he is equal parts, like the strong kind of proud creature, but also the snake in the brush. He's got his doubts about Soul Society. He certainly seems to be thinking maybe Ichigo needs to save Rukia, even though ostensibly that shouldn't be his whole goal there, right? So I like that, like the snake imagery as well as the like big monkey king energy kind of both fit Renji to a degree, between like what he projects as a officer of the Soul Society and how he feels otherwise. This conflicting nature of his soul, this duality that he has, I think is reflected pretty well in Zabimaru. So that's cool. And of course, like we have a little bit of dialogue back here. I like that Zabimaru speaks both as like both heads, and they at one point even they finish each other's kind of sentence right. Um, I think that's neat. I think Zabimaru just in general has a neat look to him. Um, you know, I like that. Like, yeah, Ranger's like, is that all you had to say after all this time? Good to see you too. Can't you say anything nice? So you get that there's kind of maybe a troubled relationship between Renji and Zabimaru, right? But Zabimaru wants to fight. Zabimaru wants to get out there and be active, just like Renji. Renji wants to get in the thick of it. He wants to enact change himself. Um, but Zabimaru mostly just wants to fight Zangetsu. It's neat that Zabimaru recognizes Zangetsu and that Zabimaru wants to win, wants a rematch, wants to have a battle, is all about like, yeah, what about that fight we were in? And to this, Renji expresses like, look, that's not my enemy, you know. Um, to which Zabimaru kind of poignantly asks, like, well, who is your enemy? Who are you in a fight? And to this, Renji looks aside and looks up to the window of his cell. And I think it's pretty significant that this window is almost reminiscent of the window that Rukia had in her own cell. And so Renji finds himself trapped and wanting to fight back. But truly, who will he fight? Who will he raise his sword against? Will he, become a traitor to the Soul Society on Rukia's behalf? Will he try to route and figure out this conspiracy? Who is the enemy? And I like that Bleach and the Soul Society arc starts to really ask that for a lot of our Shinigami characters. They have to really consider who their enemies are. We do get, of course, Renji finally returning to the custom that we had of depicting different captains and vice captains, various members of the 13 court guards, the Gote 13, and here we have Renji. And it is a decent look at him. It shows off his tattoos. It shows off his crazy widow's peak. Yeah, I don't know. Renji's hair is wild, pineapple-headed dude. But then we return to where we're going to be spending most of our chapter, which is out here in the Senzai-Q. Of course, we're finally getting a good look at Yorichi. Once again, real big fan of her design. I like the way that it's split up. I like the way that it like accents her agility. And that like even the ponytail is almost like a flag waving behind her. But it's just the real close kind of tight garb. The shows off kind of her form kind of being more lithe. Lethe. I'm pretty sure I heard someone say that and I was like, live, right? Almost positive that's the correct pronunciation. Not that it matters. All that matters is if I say words, you understand what I mean. But yeah, she's very cat-like even in this form. I like the little shoulder pads that this seems to have. It's cool. Harataro does not know who Yorichi is, but Rukia does recognize that she's supreme commander of a secret remote squad, and the general corps leader of the First Division Punishment Force. So, what I think this means, because this is a bizarre translation, and it's kind of hard to square this with like how things will later be translated in Bleach. But I tend to read so the general corps leader for the First Division Punishment Force. I don't know if they mean like the First Division of Soul Society, because certainly I think the First Division handles punishing criminals, but I could be wrong. Of like the Gote 13, like the first like squad, or I think they refer to them as divisions, which is why I read it that way. But also the idea that she was the supreme commander of a secret remote squad, which I believe later will be translated as the Amitskudo or Amitskudo. But basically, there is a secret kind of squad, and she was the leader of this remote squad that could operate kind of perhaps independently of the other squads. But she was notably this really high-ranking person, right? Yorichi Shihoen. And to this, Byakuya expresses like, yeah, it's been over 100 years, right? So over 100 years, she left, and she was assumed dead, even, which is kind of interesting. Um, of course, Ichigo doesn't care about any of that. I like that Ichigo kind of pulls in because Yorichi is definitely like dominating. There's kind of like this vying for control of this space where neither both of them are kind of front and center, and neither Yorichi or Byakuya, you're not really sure who's in control of this situation, which is kind of cool, and that's shown visually on page. And I like Ichigo kind of tries to butt in right here, right? He tries to be kind of the right aligned force moving left, bringing us forward in the manga. And Yorichi's just like, nah, you idiot. And then she is the one to move the momentum of the manga. She plunges her hand into Ichigo's stomach. And for a moment, you might assume, like, oh, what? Ichigo's been betrayed. Because, we just got revealed Yorichi used to be a member of all these, like the secret division. Is she secretly in cahoots with Soul Society all along? Was this all a false flag operation? Was she part of the conspiracy? But no, we only get about a page to linger on that before Ukitake calls this out, and he's just like, "Oh, so do you use this technique or this technique? Because you just put some really powerful anesthetic." I stumbled that line a lot. Anesthetic, like anesthesia, directly into his organs. And I guess she's like, you planning on healing him? Like, what's going on? And she's essentially, the idea being that she's going to take Ichigo away and help train him, and over the next 3 days, she will help to cultivate him. Of course, Byakuya steps in, tries to kind of control the situation again. We get this back and forth, right? That they used to play this game, Onigoko, uh, but this chase, like this tag game, right? Did you ever beat him and beat her in a game of chase the devil or just tag? You should call it tag. It's just tag. They used to play tag together over 100 years ago, and Byakuya had never beat her. And so, like in this last moment, they both shift, right? And she is behind him, which means, as you know in Bleach parlance, the character that arrives behind the other character, that's the one that's got the one up and is in charge. I like that Byakuya swings over, pulls this sword swing. I really do like the split panels here in the middle that we get, his expression and it's split, and we have the next panel where she's arriving way over here. Attention is drawn to these sandals that she has that she was not wearing before. I don't believe that we got a shot of her. Look at me looking for Yorichi feet. I guess she technically has these little sandals on in this panel up here, but I don't know that we actually see otherwise. Yeah, interesting. So this is like really that there, you get a little glimpse of them here in this panel at the top right, and then not really again. We don't really get to see her legs from the knee down until here, and attention is brought to where she steps here, and particularly perhaps this part of her outfit. And I wonder if it's meant to intentionally be like, hey, this is a part of her like accessories. We know that she gets these various relics, right? Byakuya going to stop her with this very sinister, you think you could stop me with a shunpo like that, flashed up like that? You're not quick enough, right? And we get this, dramatic moment where he slices right through her, cuts her down, only for it to all be revealed to be an illusion as these cloths fall away. Ninja fashion, Byakuya absolutely shook as she is behind him, of course, and she hits him back. Typical Kubo type fashion, throws his words back at him. Byakuya's got to be sick of this, by the way. Like, how many people try to one up Byakuya and just like throw back what he said back at him? I don't know. Happens a lot. At this point, it almost feels like a running joke. But Kubo does like that arrangement. I mean, it is cool. You've got to admit, whenever a character's saying something really high and mighty and proud after they think that they've won a victory, only for their victim to essentially reveal that no, in fact, they're the one that is in charge of the situation, and they throw their insult or sentence back at them. So yeah, here that is exactly what's happening. Yurichi insults him. She also again takes charge of the momentum of the series, maybe the manga. Is immediately, goes from being like right next to him to on top of this building. So you get really the sense of speed as she's able to outspeed even Byakuya, who up to this point was the fastest character that we knew in the entire manga. So Yurichi is, as we realize, the Flash Master. She is in fact super fast. That is seems to be her true power, if anything, right? And so certainly now it makes a lot more sense. Like, well, how is Yurichi able to avoid all the Shinigami and everything? Not just because she was a cat and was maybe able to suppress her presence, but the idea that she was also super fast. But she does say that notably she'll make Ichigo even stronger than Byakuya, and that she's like, okay, well, truce, you could come chase me, but I'll probably just whoop your ass. I won't capture you. You won't ever be able to capture me, and that's it. I like that we get like this little side thing that shows how ridiculous the Kurosaki family are being about their big summer, um, like fireworks festival deal. I can say summer; it's August 1st. But this big, fireworks festival, right? And this character being troubled by their antics, which is, fair. Um, yeah, all in all, I think this is a really cool way of introducing like Yurichi and her capabilities. We already got a little bit of that in the previous chapter. Now, I will say, like, at this point, Byakuya's sword seems like it's not all bound up, so like perhaps it would just take too much time to use his Shikai. So yeah, we don't see it all wrapped up here. So it does make sense that perhaps he could use his Shikai, but with Yurichi's speed, could he even manage to release it before she's just gone, or is it incapable of striking her? And she's just too fast? Because as we've gotten from from Rukia. Rukia is constantly saying run, and as it turns out, Yurichi's quite good at running. So perhaps she could outspeed Byakuya's Shikai, which is cool to think about. Anyway, yeah, neat chapter all around. I like this one. I think it's cool. I think it's really cool for introducing us to Zabimaru and that we get to see a little bit of other characters' connection to their Zanpakuto spirits. Cool designs all around. Just Kubo really flexing in a lot of ways. And yeah, I'm a fan of it. Let me know what you think about this chapter. But otherwise, to get into spoilers, there are a few things that I do want to talk about. Um, there's a little here. First of all, talking about the duality of Renji and like the whole snake and baboon thing, or like snake and monkey, right? That they're two in the same. I like that snake imagery is tied to Ichimaru Gen, who like pretends to be a willing member of Aizen's whole like plan until he can get his personal revenge, and can act like what his actual personal desires are. And so that snake aspect is reflected here in Renji, who also is very similarly like pretending to kind of go along with Soul Society, but really his personal desires are constantly there and constantly something that he's like willing to act on, right? So I think that like the fact that like Gin I think is completely dedicated to the snake aspect of himself, whereas Renji truly like does want to also serve Soul Society and be a good Shinigami, and like that's part of his desires as well. So I like that there's that split aspect to him, but also the first time that we get this conversation between Renji and Zabimaru, you can read that all after all this time is like just since like that last battle, but there's like a contention there, like the way that he's like, can't you say anything nice? And Zabimaru just cares about fighting, and it's like pressuring him in these ways. There's definitely like it definitely like tilts a little bit towards like him not having the same sort of, like, not having an honest perhaps relationship with Zabimaru, not really like having good communication with Zabimaru, especially with Zabimaru still being confused about, like, you know, who they're going to be fighting and all of that, right? Um, even calls him a fool. So, I mean, Renji calls Zabimaru a fool. So, like, you get that there's some contention between Renji and his sword spirit, and so it only makes sense that whenever he pressures into having this Bankai, he hasn't truly come to understand his spirit, and so therefore it is this false Bankai that doesn't truly reflect who Renji is. And interestingly enough, his Bankai, the Hio Zabimaru, I think that's it. Anyway, his initial Bankai that he has, the big snake, reflects the snake aspect of Zabimaru because it is Renji embracing his personal desires and that snake aspect of himself and rebelling, right? Biting the hand that feeds and all of that. But in reality, whenever he comes to understand himself deeper and reforge his Zenpakuto in the Thousand Year Blood War, he has a new form because he's come to understand the fullness of his own soul and that he wants to serve Soul Society as much as he does, uphold his own passions, I think, is what's maybe kind of happening there. So the snake aspect gets shared in equal parts with the monkey aspect, right? The king of the jungle and all that. There's also some Japanese wordplay happening there with, like, the way that you can read the kanji and it being, like, read differently and all of that. I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to get into it. Um, but feel free to look that up on your own time. Nevertheless, I do think it's really cool that there is this consistent imagery in Bleach, and then that is consistent with how Zabimaru is depicted and, like, manifested whenever he uses his Bankai. Um, yeah, it's really cool. I'm about it. Of course, like, the enemy being Byakuya, as we know, ends up being the one that Renji wants to fight, and so it's interesting that he is then in the cell, similar to how Rukia was, but his is even barred. So yeah, that's cool. Um, yeah, here I assume that they're just saying that she used to be the leader of the Amatsukudo. The General Corps leader for the First Division Punishment Force, I think, is meant to be the leader for. I know earlier I was saying for, like, the First Division having, like, a whatchamacallit, like the actual, like, Squad 1 having criminal punishment. I'm pretty sure they do, but I think this also could just mean that she was the leader of a part of the Amatsukudo that dealt with punishing people. So could be that too. Assassins. Interestingly enough, like, back then, I assume that she's also, Captain the Second kind of gets glossed over because those are traditionally a shared role, being the Amatsukudo leader and the Captain the Second. Interestingly enough, this whole Shihoan clan thing doesn't get brought up here. Even though Ganju did bring up the Shoichi before, the Four Great Clans, and the Shihoan certainly being one of them, you would think that, like, Byakuya perhaps would even speak on, like, I had thought the Shihoan clan ended with you, which, as we know, it doesn't. She does have, like, a younger brother and all of that, but, like, something like that would have been nice to see here. That's all. Um, of course, Yurichi knows that they're completely not going to beat both Ukitake and Byakuya. It's ridiculous. So she knocks him out. And I do like that, like, Ukitake's just trying to kind of figure out, like, what exactly is her plan. She's going to heal him, what's going on. And she has kind of a, more of a forlorn look as she says, like, Ukitake, right? So you get the sense that, like, Ukitake's like, hey, look, I can tell, like, you and he are on the same side, and he's trying to kind of parse out what's going on. I love Yurichi basically being like, yo, you really think you're on par with me, Byakuya? I absolutely convinced that at any point in the manga, maybe not at Thousand Year Blood War, but I don't know. I'm convinced that at any point Yurichi could beat Byakuya in a fight. Just skill set wise, I think she's just made of different stuff. Um, Now, yeah, she has to close in to close distance to fight, but like the fact that she is as fast as she is, and we've been shown that his Bankai, at least in this part of the manga, has difficulty keeping up with speed. Plus, he has the whole like zone of danger around him where he could hurt himself. I just think that Yurichi absolutely could outclass him. Would it come to a fight? But of course, it's up to whatever the author wants. There is one more neat thing here whenever they're having their little Shunpo battle. It's right in this moment. I was talking about like if her boots are an artifact or not. I'm not still not sure. I don't think they're meant to be. I think they're just meant to withstand like the extreme speeds that she moves at. That's all. But this moment of like, do you think you could escape me with a Shunpo? And he cuts through her, and then this cloth gets sliced, and it was like this cloth thing all along. So this immediately reminds me of the Zero Division's Senju, and she uses a very similar technique. I think whenever she's fighting, if it's like Weizol, like the W, the warp, or whatever it was. Whenever she's fighting, whenever Senjumaru has like the one battle she has, she uses a similar like illusory cloth technique. Obviously to like a much higher degree, right? But it's really interesting because I don't think it ever gets explicitly stated that like what division or what part of the Soul Society Senjumaru used to be a part of. I think it eventually gets made clear that if you couldn't tell, that she is the inventor of the Shihaku show, that she is responsible for that. Like that's like her contribution to Soul Society. But like I think that she does have quotes about like moving fast or doing things in a quick pace, and that's like her whole deal. Um, but I definitely think that she like while you can speculate because like there's the whole deal where she breaks into Mayuri's lab and all of that. While you could speculate that she might have been research and development in the past or something along those lines, I definitely think she was like an originator of the second division or the Amatsukudo or some aspect of that. This whole sewing needle as a weapon thing, it rings very assassin to me. But the fact that both her and Yurichi both use the same technique, there's a lot of connections. And notably, I think it gets expressed that like with Yurichi's, what like oh boy, her like ultimate technique, right? The Shunpo or whatever name you want to give it, because I believe that Soifan thinks that she's discovered it. Whatever, really, it turns out Yurichi created it. But I think even before then, perhaps this was a technique that Senjumaru pioneered, because notably Senjumaru does not have arms, and so she's the ultimate Bleach character. She doesn't even have either arm anymore. She just has these organic arms. An artifact that she uses, a golden artifact, similar to a lot of the golden Shihoan artifacts. So it's notable that like there is that connection of tool use of here illusory cloth, but you could also speculate that perhaps she was trying to crack the code on Shunpo and perhaps in overdoing it, blew her own arms off. That's my headcanon. Because we never get confirmation why she doesn't have arms. It never comes up, never gets expressed. But that's what I think. That and then after that she like it's interesting too because both Yurichi and Soifan wear a specialized Shihaku show specifically for Shunpo. So, pretty cool, huh? Pretty neat connection. And I like that you can maybe even read that connection this early with this elusive cloth technique that Yurichi uses that we don't really see again from any other Shinigami as far as I remember. Um, so yeah, really cool moment here as we get this connection. Of course, Yurichi is the Flash Master. Um, the idea is that yeah, she'll be training Ichigo to learn his Bankai, and that. That's all there is. Them's the breaks, folks. So yeah, neat chapter. Lots of like surprising connections. Lots of kind of insights that I didn't expect perhaps to draw. But I think there's a lot to be said about, the kind of deeper connections here. And I feel like, certainly with Zabimaru, a lot of that stuff's intended from the onset for sure. Um, I think Kubo had the whole idea for everything with Kaien from the get go. Now, as far as like connecting Yurichi to um, Senjumaru, I think that could easily be explained as something that was done retroactively. Like whenever we're trying to think of like, okay, well, I got to think of these characters that clearly influenced a lot of stuff in Soul Society. Well, let me go back and read Soul Society arc and see if I can find things to attribute to each of these kind of pillars of the Soul Society, right? And so, you're like, okay, well, what are the like things that are dynamic or aspects of Soul Society? You have, Flash Step is a big thing, Zanpakuto is a thing, Yurichi used these artifacts and having this cloth thing, right? There's these spells, right? So what's going on with that? We have Gigai and artificial souls. So perhaps someone's responsible there. It all seems like kind of like Kubo being like, okay, well, I've been building this world. Let me create the characters that are responsible for aspects of it, and so you can kind of make those characters, retroactively, is what I'm saying. So I don't necessarily feel like, oh man, this cloth thing was written as a cloth thing and not just like a stump or something, because it was meant to all along tie to Senjumaru, the creator of the Shihaku show. I think that writing tends to be a much more organic process than that. As an author myself, and as somebody who spent a lot of time around other authors from a number of cultures, the creative process is oftentimes not as meticulously plotted and planned as people like to imagine. So, there might have been some idea forming here, but I think it's cool that it links up ultimately in the story, and I like to enjoy this rereading in this light. But yeah, I'm not gonna, not going to make claims like he had ideas for Senjumaru this early, like he had it all plotted out, right? Or all figured out, I suppose. But it is cool that there is that connection, and I do like it. But if you see any connections of your own, if you see anything that you would like to point out, please do let me know. Otherwise, thank you for watching this video. Please do give the video a like. If you've been following along with the channel and you'd like to, I would appreciate if you could subscribe as well. All the typical rigmarole. That said, if you are serious about supporting the channel, please do give a gander at the Patreon. That is another way that you can always support the channel and is greatly appreciated. Those who support the Patreon, their names are always featured at the end of these episodes. And so I want to give a big thanks to all you guys. Thank you very much. So yeah, that's it for this one, folks. I really do appreciate you watching. Hope you had fun with this chapter. I know I did. And yeah, I'll catch you next time. This has been Carker Gold, reminding you, spirits are forever with you. Stay gold.